Have you ever felt like you're playing a video game, but instead of just playing, you're constantly watching yourself play? You don't just have a conversation. You might find yourself actively analyzing your posture, your tone of voice, or how the other person's left eyebrow twitched when you said a specific word. This experience sits on a fascinating spectrum of human psychology, hyper-awareness. It's the feeling of being acutely, intensely plugged into your surroundings and your own mind. The internet often calls it the anxiety of being perceived. But living with it can feel like a beautiful, exhausting paradox. Today, we are breaking down what happens when our internal volume is turned all the way up, exploring why our brains do this, the hidden cost of noticing everything, and how to find balance when your mind won't stop analyzing. If you've ever felt like an observer looking in on your own life, let's talk. 2. The spectrum, living in high definition. Awareness isn't an all-or-nothing trait. It exists on a massive spectrum. On one end, you have total autopilot. But on the higher end of the spectrum, the mind tends to turn inward. Psychologists have a few useful concepts to describe this. One is hyperreflexivity, a state where the mind becomes intensely, almost automatically self-conscious, treating its own thoughts and actions as objects to be studied. As a metaphor, it can feel a bit like living in the Truman Show, except you are simultaneously the actor, the director, and the harsh critic writing the review in real time. When someone experiences heightened awareness, it often manifests in a few distinct ways. First, an amplified spotlight effect. This is a frequent feeling that everyone is noticing your smallest mistakes or a microscopic stain on your shirt, even though research shows people are usually too wrapped up in their own heads to notice. Second, reading the subtext. This means constantly tracking microshifts in body language, where a slight delay in a text response or a change in vocal tone can feel like a major shift in a relationship. And third, metacognition in overdrive. You aren't just thinking, you are thinking about your thoughts, which can easily trap you in a loop of analysis paralysis. 3. The root causes. Where does it come from? So, why do some of us sit further down this spectrum than others? There isn't just one answer. Heightened awareness can arise from a complex mix of ingredients. For some, it's simply a natural personality trait, like introversion or a highly reflective personality. For others, it's tied to anxiety or unique cognitive styles. Life experiences play a massive role, too. For instance, some people develop hyper-awareness as a survival or coping mechanism. If someone grew up in an unpredictable or stressful environment, learning to scan the room and read moods perfectly wasn't just a habit, it was a way to stay safe. But when that intense tracking persists into everyday adult life, it can bring a couple of tough psychological paradoxes. The first is the empathy trap. Understanding exactly why people act the way they do can make it incredibly easy to rationalize their bad behavior, sometimes making it harder to protect your own boundaries. The second is the authenticity dilemma. When you are constantly monitoring how you present yourself, it's common to feel a bit disconnected from who you actually are when the audience is gone. A quick note here. While high awareness can be a useful tool, an intense, unrelenting self-focus can also be a feature of certain mental health conditions. If this state ever causes persistent distress or starts taking over your life, it is always a strength, and incredibly valuable, to discuss it with a professional. 4. The shift, learning to change the lens. The good news is that awareness is a skill you can learn to direct rather than a burden you must carry. If you relate to this, the goal isn't to erase your awareness or try to force your brain to become dull. Awareness is a gift. The goal is learning when to actively engage that awareness, and when to let yourself simply experience the moment. It's about control, and we can practice that with a couple of mental exercises. First, practice exteroception. When you catch your brain spiraling inward, asking things like how do I sound right now? Or what do they think? Gently force your senses outward. Name 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can touch in your immediate environment. Shift the camera from yourself back to the world. Second, use the so what. Reframing. When you catch yourself overanalyzing a tiny social interaction, try asking, even if I was a little awkward, so what? Allowing yourself to be an unpolished, unedited human being can take the pressure off the need to constantly monitor yourself. Being highly aware means you often perceive the world in high definition. It can mean finding yourself deeply moved by art, understanding others quickly, and noticing the subtle beauty that gets lost in the noise of daily life. You don't need to turn it off. You just need to give yourself permission to step off the stage and join the audience every once in a while. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments by leaving the word present. It lets me know you made it to the end, and it's a great way to see how many of us are working on finding this balance together. Hit subscribe if you enjoy exploring how our minds work, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care of your mind, and remember to just live in the moment.